All right, this is my fitness transformation story where I am going to talk about how I went from being skinny fat and out of shape to getting shredded and into the best shape of my life, and then going on to compete in amateur bodybuilding competitions, along with a couple of things that I did to get into shape that will help you out. I want to talk about that in this video after the intro. Beginning of the Great Ocean Road here in Australia. Really phenomenal, guys. All right, my friends, welcome back. It is the 4th of July 2020, and I thought I'd use this opportunity, raining outside in Melbourne, really gloomy, to share my fitness transformation story with you, hopefully to inspire a few of you to start your own fitness journey, and maybe my story will resonate with you. And also you can click on some of the links down below. I've written some articles of the strategies that I use to get into the best shape of my life. But it was never always the case. I struggled with fitness my whole life, pretty much up until I was 29 or 30. I'm 35 now. So up until 28, 29, I struggled with trying to get into shape, and it didn't come naturally to me. Fitness was not a strength in my life. I didn't have any role models in my family that were into fitness and that could teach me the ropes. I was very new to the gym. I didn't lift anything like dumbbells and barbells until I was in my mid-20s. I was very intimidated to go to the gym, and I was very intimidated to bench press and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't know what I was doing. But prior to that, as a teenager and in my early 20s, I was a skinny looking guy. And I was always told by people that I had bad genetics, that my genetics would not allow me to build muscle. And I remember even throughout my 20s, I was reminded by ex-colleagues at work that my body type was just not conducive of building any meaningful muscle. Going into this fitness journey was already a setback because I had this planted in my mind that I could never ever really build a great body, one that I could be really proud of. Even though as a teenager and in my early 20s I looked pretty skinny, I didn't eat good food. I used to eat a lot of junk food. I was like eating chips and lollies, and I grew up on Vegemite sandwiches, right? Here in Australia, almost every kid ate, cheese and Vegemite sandwiches. So if you've ever been to Australia, you probably know what I'm talking about with the Vegemite. In the UK, you guys call it Marmite. But anyway, that's what I ate, and I didn't respect my body. I just polluted my body. I just ate everything I can get my hands on. But even then, I started trying different diets and programs, and I tried things like clean eating. So I removed a lot of the junk food out of my life and just ate, quinoa and like healthy grains and unprocessed foods and things of that nature. And I still couldn't build muscle. I still couldn't get into shape. I was still out of shape, even though I was eating all of this quote unquote healthy food. And so it's a long story with regard to all the different diets that I tried. I tried being a vegan and a pescatarian. I tried being a vegetarian for a while. I tried many different diets, and I was frustrated. And I really did start to believe, like everyone had told me over the years, that my genetics would not allow me to get into great shape. I then started going to the gym a lot, sort of in my mid-20s, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was scared of, weight training. I didn't know what I was doing. I was not confident. And so whenever I'd go to the gym, I'd only do cable machines because they looked pretty easy and they looked pretty inviting. So I'd go to these cable machines, I'd read the plaques, and then I would just do what the plaque would say, right? But I would never ever do any barbells or dumbbell work because I was just too scared of, dropping a dumbbell on my head or on my feet, or, dropping a bar on my chest if I was trying to do the bench press. I just didn't have the confidence in the gym to do the things that would have really helped me get into shape. And I remember when I was going through my initial journey, sort of in my mid-20s of trying to get into shape, I was like, I just want a body like Ryan Reynolds. I'll throw up the exact photo that I saved on my computer of the exact body that I wanted. And Ryan Reynolds was a bit of an inspiration. That body type was what I was looking for. I wanted that nice shredded look, nothing over the top, just a nice shredded look. And I really, really worked hard for it. And I did everything in the gym. I tried many different programs and I still couldn't get the body like Ryan Reynolds. It wasn't until around the end of 2014 that I had just come out of a long-term relationship, and I was also very, very sick. And even for a couple of years leading up to 2014, I was in and out of hospital a lot. I used to get a lot of chest infections, and so a lot of dry coughing and things like that. And it would usually take me like 2 or 3 months just to get over a dry cough. And so I used to go to hospital for this dry cough, and the doctors would always say that it was due to my lifestyle. It was due to the food I was putting into my body. It was due to the stress of my life. You know, I was working a full-time job. I was studying to become a commercial pilot. I was working with my ex-girlfriend on her business. I was also putting rubbish food into my body. And so I was getting sick very easily, and I'd always get these chest infections. And so I'd have all these chest x-rays, and the doctors thought at one point that I had pneumonia. At another point, they thought I had a partially collapsed lung. They thought that I had some kind of adult whooping cough, because I'd cough so much that my throat would start to bleed and I could taste blood in the back of my throat. That's how much I was, and this is how severe I was coughing. And so I remember when I moved out of my ex-girlfriend's house, I was so miserable with my body. I was so miserable with my health and my fitness that I decided that enough was enough, and that I would figure it out for once and for all, getting past all these yo-yo diets that I was trying, and faffing around and dabbling in this area of my life that people told me that I could never master because of my genetics. It was the time that I had to commit to getting into the best shape of my life. And so I decided to stop flying. I decided to put everything, 110%, into figuring out how to get into shape. And so I read books, I started researching online, I did everything I could to figure out how to get into the best shape of my life with my bad genetics. I started doing things like DEXA scans, where I got my body, I put my body through a DEXA scan where they x-ray your body and they tell you how much muscle you have, how much fat you have on your body. And I used that as a bit of a yardstick for bulking and cutting. So I started bulking and cutting, and I started the process of tracking my calories and tracking my macronutrient intake. So I used applications like MyNet Diary and FitNotes. I used FitNotes to track my training in the gym. I used MyNet Diary to track my calories and my macronutrients. And I set my calories at around 2,100 calories to start chopping down the fat on my body. And that was during my cut. I then hired a personal trainer to show me how to train properly in the gym. I read a book called Starting Strength by Mark Rippetoe. It was one of the best investments of my life. I will link it below. Go and read that book. It taught me everything that I was not doing in the gym, that I should have been training with barbells and dumbbells, and I should have been incorporating deadlifting and overhead press and bench press and squats and heavy compound lifts such as those. And I wasn't. When I was going to the gym, I was doing a lot of cable machines and isolation work, and I was avoiding any of the exercises in the gym that were difficult or very intimidating. And then over time, I just got better, and I did my best to improve on my deadlifting and my squats and my bench press and my overhead press and those kinds of exercises. And I also got better at tracking my macros and my calorie intake. and I got better at bulking and cutting. And then honestly, when I got to the end of my first cut, I managed to strip away a lot of body fat, but I wasn't truly happy. I didn't have a six-pack, I wasn't shredded, and that was because I didn't cut correctly. And then I decided to bulk again, and I started increasing my calorie intake, and I bulked up to about 16% body fat. And I'll show you the DEXA scan report so you can see this. And then when I bulked up, I then started cutting again. I started to see a six-pack for the first time in my life. Now, this was probably one of the most exciting things I've ever experienced in my fitness journey. Seeing a six-pack starting to emerge was a really, really awesome thing. And I started to become a little bit obsessive over it. I'm like, I can't believe this. I've never ever had a six-pack in my life. And then that whole myth of I have bad genetics just kind of went out the window. And then that drove me more and more and more to get in better shape. I started to learn more about lifting and learn more about push-pull legs, which I wrote about as an article a few years ago, back in 2017, and I'll link it below. So I incorporated push-pull legs, and I did more training, and I got into more and more shape, to the point where I decided it was probably a good idea to try and compete in my first amateur bodybuilding competition. And so for someone that was just wanting to get in shape and get a six-pack, thinking about competing on stage was extremely scary for me. I'd never been on stage before. I'd never competed in anything athletically or in fitness in my life. So that was another barrier that I had to break through. So I spent about 6 months thinking about the idea of competing. I did a lot of research. I spoke to a lot of different people that had competed. And so I thought it'd be a really cool goal to set for myself to compete in my very first amateur bodybuilding / fitness model competition. So I hired a coach, and I started to learn how to pose, and I got my head around the idea of having to shave all the hair off my body and get all this crazy tan and learn how to pose in front of judges, in front of hundreds of people on stage. So it was a huge learning experience for me and a personal challenge for me, which I will make a separate video on in the future because that's a whole other thing. And I eventually got stage ready, and I got on stage at a competition, my first ever amateur bodybuilding competition, under a federation for natural competitors, so no steroids whatsoever. And I pride myself on the fact that I've never ever taken any steroids in my life, and never tried them, never will. And I'm super happy and proud of that fact that I built my body completely naturally. And I got on stage for the first time, and I was really, really nervous getting on stage with this tan and all these people looking at me half naked with these lights on me and judges judging me. And I ended up coming first in the rookies. I won the competition. And I couldn't believe it, because it was the first time I've ever won anything in my life. I've never won anything. And winning something in fitness was like a dream come true. It felt like a huge fantasy. And even now to this day, I still can't believe I won, an amateur fitness bodybuilding competition in a natural federation. And so I remember standing on stage and my number 87 being called out and being handed this trophy. And I won that division, and then I won again first place in another division. So I got these two big trophies in my hands. And then my trainer won the Master Trainer Award, and I just couldn't believe it. It was one of the best days of my life, and that was in 2017, March 2017. And then from that point on, I was so happy and I was so motivated to compete in more competitions that I went on to compete in, I think, 4 other competitions. And the 5th competition was in June 2017, and I competed in the world titles where I was representing Australia, and I went overseas and I competed on stage overseas, and I didn't win. I got 4th or 5th place, but for me it wasn't about winning at that point. It was just about the idea of, you know, the fact that I participated in the world titles and I stood on stage with world champions. It was something that I cannot believe I did that, and I never believed I had it in me to achieve something like that. And yeah, I still can't believe it to this day. And then, you know, throughout these amateur fitness competitions that I was doing, I was also doing these photo shoots, and these photo shoots were things that made me very nervous because I'd never ever been half naked in front of photographers with lights taking photos of me. It was a very, very new concept to me. I'd never been through this before, and I just was doing these photo shoots for my first amateur bodybuilding competition. A few days before I got on stage, I did this photo shoot where they had me wrap chains around my neck and stuff. It was, you know, it was pretty strange, to be honest with you, but it was really, really fun. And even though I was nervous, I had a really good time doing these photo shoots. And I did another photo shoot when I was in, you know, doing the world titles, you know, outside on the grass, you know, all shredded with this 6-pack and things like that. So my fitness journey after all those competitions that I did has motivated and inspired me to start this YouTube channel back in 2016, actually, to share my fitness journey through all my initial vlogs and getting ready for my amateur bodybuilding competitions. And so I wanted to share this story with you because hopefully this story inspires a few of you to start your own journey. So that is my fitness story, and I did all of that while working a corporate job and working night shift. I did a night shift job for 9.5 years, not all night shift, but mostly night shift for almost 10 years. And I was getting ready for these competitions while I was working night shifts. So I also had another mental challenge of thinking to myself, how can I lose weight? How can I get in shape while working night shift? Because I was eating all of my calories, you know, from 8:30 at night till 7 in the morning. And there's so many people out there that tell you that you shouldn't eat your calories after 9 o'clock at night because it'll all get stored as fat. So I had to think to myself, how can I, and I didn't know anybody that was doing night shift that was in good shape. So I blew my mind because I was working night shift and I was doing all these amateur bodybuilding competitions and, you know, doing all my meal prep and meal planning, for night shift. And I'd eat all my meals at like 2 o'clock in the morning and 6 o'clock in the morning and 9 o'clock at night, and most of my calories that I was consuming were from 8:30 at night till 7 in the morning, and then I'd go to sleep at 7:30 in the morning. So fast forward to 2020, and I've been able to mostly maintain that shape and strength since 2017. I haven't been competing on stage since 2017. So I'm not in the same shape that I was in 2017, but and even most recently, because we're all in lockdown now and the gyms have been closed for 3 months, I've been doing some home workouts around here, and I've been doing 10, 12 kilometer jogs, maybe 3 or 4 times a week here. In the last couple of years, I've been focusing more on Muay Thai, and ever since I finished my last amateur bodybuilding competition, I've also been doing Muay Thai. I've discovered this place, not discovered it, but I found this place known as, I like to call it Fitness Street in Phuket, Thailand. And it's basically a long street in Thailand that's full of all these fitness camps and training camps and healthy eating bars and restaurants. And ever since I've come across this place, I've just been really inspired by it. And so my fitness in the last couple of years has revolved around Muay Thai kickboxing and that kind of training, and not so much amateur bodybuilding and getting on stage. So I hope this has inspired a few of you watching this. I will link up some articles that I've written below that will help you get started on your own fitness journey. That absolutely helped me. I've written an article on push-pull legs, which was pretty much the fundamental, foundation for my lifting program that I started doing back in 2014 and 15. And then I wrote an article on my interpretation of push-pull legs. I didn't invent it, it's been out there forever, but my interpretation of push-pull legs to make it easier for absolute beginners like you watching. Go and read that article, Push-Pull Legs. I'm not a writer, by the way. I'm not a very good writer. I just write the way I talk, but I know it'll help a few of you watching this. And also if you need help with tracking your calories and your macros, the way I did it to make it really straightforward and easy and less complicated, I'll link some articles down below as well. And how I use my net diary to track my macros and things like that. So I'll link some articles down below. That will help you. And if you have any questions, let me know. I hope this has been helpful, and maybe share your own fitness journey with me. Feel free to send me an email or leave some comments on the video, and I will get back to you. Thanks for watching, and all the best.
That's crazy.